Yefimovich, Chapter 3. Yefimovich opened his eyes to the new day, and his ears absorbed all the strange and mystic sounds. The harmony of creation vibrated in the thickness of tangled vines and trees, as the wilderness was alive both by day as it was by night. On the floor below, Victoria had made a breakfast of grains, fruits and jellies, and she was preparing snacks of nuts and dried berries for their hike through the thicket of gargantuan trees and kaleidoscopic shrubbery. Yefimovich climbed down the ladder to join her. "Good morning, Yefi," she said, handing him his plate as it overflowed with the morning's meal. "Good morning, Vi." He spoke tiredly, still waking his mind and body, reaching out with his hands over his head, stretching his body, letting the blood flow through him, all with a yawn to fill his mind and heart with oxygen. He and his wife sat at the small rounded breakfast table, sitting on air pillows as soft as feathers and as sleek as silk, when they heard a noise. A thump blundered from above, and then a small frightened scream. "Yekaterina!" Yefimovich yelled. "I'm fine!" She yelled back down to her father. She came down the set of ladders, looking flustered, talking to herself. "What happened up there?" Victoria asked. "A fox," she responded, still agitated. "A fox?" her mother expressed in confusion. "Yeah, there was a fox sleeping at the end of my bed. It scared me half to death," Yekaterina explained. "How did it get in there?" Victoria thought aloud. "It may have been my fault. I think it snuck in through a window flap." "You left it open?" her mother asked. "I did," Yekaterina confessed. "Oh, Kat, at least you're all right. Where is the fox now?" Victoria asked. "When I screamed, I think I startled it, and it jumped out of the window." "Oh, poor thing. Is it okay?" Victoria wondered. "Poor thing? I thought that thing was going to bite me," Kat continued. "It didn't really jump out. It just walked out onto the branch that sits beside my window." "Is it still there?" Yefimovich was interested. "I don't know. I rushed down here after I fell out of bed," she said with little enthusiasm. Yefimovich climbed the set of ladders to the room where Yekaterina was sleeping. He lifted the window cover, and to his delight he saw the furry creature sitting 10 yards away on a bulky, bouldered branch. The sad blue eyes of the ruby-red fox, lined with bangled stripes, melted Yefimovich's heart. Its ears curved towards Yefimovich, and a fan rose above its head, stemming from its neckline, honing in on what Yefimovich was saying. Its fanned mane was colourful and bright, camouflaged with its surroundings. "Isn't he adorable?" Victoria sighed. "He is quite cute," said Yefimovich. The small pup laid down upon the branch, his nose buried forward into his paws with heartbreaking puppy eyes, glancing at Yefimovich and his family. "Do you think he's hungry?" he asked his wife and daughter while tearing a piece of bread he held within his hands. The fox lifted his head slightly in reaction to Yefimovich. He whistled to the gentle create, holding out a morsel of bread. The furry fox gave a small cry, inching his way over to Yefimovich, crawling steadily yet cautiously. "What are you doing, Dad?" Yekaterina asked. The inflection in her tone was of nervousness. "He's not going to hurt us," he said, trying to settle his daughter's fear. As the small beast was just inches from Yefimovich's hand, it ducked its nose back into its paws. Yefi placed the piece of bread down onto the branch at the fox's feet. It sniffed the torn piece of food and looked at Yefimovich, then gracefully consumed it. Its white-tipped, bushy-red tail wavered with happiness. It sat upward, still looking at him, nuzzling his hand for more. "Here you go, little guy. Take the rest," he told the wild animal. "Dad, don't!" Kat jittered. The red-bangled fox looked at her and gave a lovable howl that ran with affection in their ears. Yefimovich ruffled its frizzy head, saying goodbye to the lonely beast. After a quick shower from the washroom outside, just off the ensuite, Yefimovich dressed from head to toe in hiking gear. When he left his room, he was met with a laugh of mockery. "What are you wearing, Dad?" Yekaterina giggled. "Same as you. It's my hiking gear." He noted the obviousness of it. "From when? 100 years ago?" She teased him some more. "You women and your fashion. Keep it, I say. This is about practicality, not about the poshness of my attire, he said, slightly flustered. Cheer up, dear. Victoria attempted to sway his mood. You may be laughing now, but let's see how the day goes, shall we? He pecked her lips with his own. Ready? He asked in higher spirits. The day moved quickly, but it was not without felicity and satisfaction. They explored the richness of the jungle, the wealth of life, whether animal or plant. It piqued the mind. Yefimovich examined every detail from the grandeur of a fallen tree to the paltry plainness of the dirt they walked on. The insects scurried to run a society unknown to most. Sweet lullabies and sonnets were sung from birds as bright and colourful as the flowers that perfumed the forest. Howls were heard from high in the canopy and low on the humid floor of the jungle. Their bodies tired, they stopped to rest, and Yefimovich began chuckling to himself as he noticed he carried almost everything, though most of what he had were for precautionary measures. Flint to start a fire, an axe to chop wood for a fire, a small tent folded into his backpack, and the list went on in his head until he burst out in laughter. This is it. That's gone mad, Yekaterina joked. What's so funny? Victoria asked. I do look quite ridiculous, don't I? He said, still giggling at himself. You might be a little over-prepared, said Victoria, but if I'm honest, I wouldn't want it any other way. I kind of rely on your over-preparation. You do? He asked. How many times have we teased you about having little trinkets and devices only to end up having to need all of them? Like the time you brought a needle and thread out to dinner, and I ended up tearing a part of my dress, Yekaterina reminded him. More times than we would like to admit, but it's something only you would think of, Yekaterina admitted. Victoria wrapped her arms around him as they sat on the body of a fallen tonkali pine. While they rested their exhausted bodies, there came a ruffle from the copse that hugged the towering fig, maple and pines, and through the boscage, Yefimovich could spot the steel blue eyes of a familiar acquaintance. The sly red fox revealed itself, keeping his distance, cautious as was his nature. Look who it is. Seems our new friend has been following us, said Yefimovich. I told you not to feed him, Dad, Kat said, scolding her father. I'm sorry, little guy. I don't have anything left for you, he told the crimson beast, whose ears were tucked down behind his head. The animal took a few steps forward, stopped and sat, still gazing at Yefimovich and his family. He took a few more steps and repeated the pattern until he was just a few paces from Yekaterina. Shoo! She yelled. Go away, you! The pup hid its tail between its legs and whimpered. The young fox laid down, his eyes focused on Yekaterina, the time of day getting late. Yefimovich and his family had trekked deep into the forest, and the jungle began to morph as the sun started to drip further down towards the horizon. New sounds emerged, along with new colours and creatures. The vibrant and joyful calls of the day turned to bellows of mystery and sorrow. The palette of painted plants and trees became illuminating light shows as their veins glowed with the water that ran through them. The coy fox that followed them seemed to alter in appearance. The white tip of his tail lit a calm and steady flare, and his fan, when it rose, looked much like embers waving in colours of red and orange. They soon exited the husk of the forest, and in the distance they could see their 3-story tent high in the steady oak. We made it, Yefimovich said with fatigue in his speech. Good, I can barely stand any longer. I'm completely exhausted, Victoria muttered tiredly. I can't wait to soak in a hot bath and relax at the beach tomorrow in Heavohe Island, Kat expressed, bone-weary from the day, with the fox still following close behind. The moon hung, suspended high in the black sky. The night was hushed, harmonious, as Yefimovich and his wife rested comfortably next to the crackle of the fireplace. His eyes were heavy like bags of sand, trying mightily to keep his lids from closing. Victoria had already fallen asleep within his arms. He slowly slid out of her embrace, his left arm tingling, feeling heavy as the blood flowed lethargically back through his veins. He climbed the ladder up to the 3rd floor to check on his daughter, and she too was soundly taken from fatigue in the comfort of her bed, and just outside the window was the red fox. The creature's blue eyes darted towards Yefimovich. He found it odd that the little beast had such a strong connection with Yekaterina. For him, there was no logical explanation, but for the fox, nothing seemed more logical than to follow his daughter. Yefimovich mulled it over in his head, heading back down to the first floor, where Victoria was still dreaming. He took out the stones he always held with him. He cradled his wife in his arms, and from the stones moulded the shape of a flat disc. He stood upon its surface and rose to the second floor, placing his wife on the cottony comforts of the cushiony bed. Yefimovich dissembled the discs back into 3 stones, and he too let the Sandman grant him dreams through the hours of the night.